we're going to take on something that you might be a little afraid of. 5 conversations you must have with your teen.
The whole model that we share in our positive parenting program has to do with stages of moral development.
Right.
And this is how control and maturity come together. Based on that model, the first conversation that I think we must have with our teens has to do with freedom is not free. You ask any veteran of any war and they will tell you this. Freedom is not free. And for those of you who have served, thank you so much for your service. It extends far beyond the freedom that we enjoy in the country or the community where we live. Freedom has to do with being able to make choices and decisions about your own life and being unencumbered from the things that are going to take away your freedom, like captivity.
It's really, really common for teenagers especially to get into a sense of entitlement.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's also, we learn cause and effect as a young child. You know, you push a toy and it goes or whatever. I think that this kind of cause and effect, it's important to talk about. It's an issue that's brought up when you're talking about freedom. There is some cause and effect to things we do, and
Yes.
it's not something that we're entitled to. It is the effect of many, many causes.
Now, it's not just the conversation that's going to contribute to this, because some of the entitlement, quite honestly, comes from our indulging them
Right.
in things that they want. And we do this naturally as parents because we want our kids to have a comfortable, semi-luxurious life. Now, I say luxurious, I mean compared to what?
Right.
Right? But your kids typically live in an environment that they have no ability to sustain or afford on their own. They need to know that freedom is not free. Most of what they're enjoying right now, you are paying for as a parent. And this will help them to build a life where they can actually experience some joy and freedom and autonomy on their own. That's why it's the number one conversation.
The second conversation is that knowledge is potential power.
It's sometimes said knowledge is power, right?
Yeah,
You've
but
heard
it's
it that
really
way.
potential because we have to apply that knowledge before it truly becomes powerful.
Think about how this plays out in your own life because you're used to this, right? I mean, you know that the power you have in your life is because of your education or your experience. This is all giving you knowledge, and that knowledge then can be converted into almost anything that you need to accomplish as an adult. Our teens aren't adults yet.
Right.
And they're coming out of childhood where everything's handed to them. We talked about that entitlement
Right.
in our last conversation. Sometimes we put the focus in the wrong place. We say you have to do your homework or you have to go to school. What if we could give them a stronger why in this conversation?
To help them understand the power of gaining knowledge, because there are so many ways to gain knowledge in this world. So we want to help them learn how to gain that knowledge and maybe even what kind of knowledge to trust, what sources to trust. These are great conversations to have with your child, especially in this day and age where information is just bombarded at us, some of which is helpful, some of what is not very helpful.
You have to be able to sort it out, filter it,
Yeah.
have the conversation. The third conversation we're going to encourage you to have with your teenager is to help them not suck.
That's such an awful thing to say.
Let me explain, okay? Because when I say that, I mean that you have to produce more than you consume. If you consume more than you produce, technically you suck because you suck resources. You're not contributing more than you're taking away. Does that make sense
Yeah,
now?
it does. Yeah, it's just this kind of this energy hole when you
Right.
are consuming more than you're producing. And, you know, remember that it's common for a young child to consume more than they produce, but there's this balance. Remember, we're talking about teens. We want to help propel them into adulthood. And that's where they get to learn how, okay, now I'm going to have to take a little bit more responsibility and what am I doing and what am I using and how can I kind of balance that out?
They won't naturally come into this. And how will they know unless we have the conversation with them that they have to be producing more than they consume? And it's not because of you. It's not because you as a parent want them to be more productive. Well, you do, but the reason you want them to be productive is it's going to benefit their life. This isn't about you. Yeah, you'll get a benefit as a parent, but let's help them see a strong why behind this, that their life, their profitability, their productivity, their future, their relationships depends on them getting this. They have to produce more than they consume. It's probably not just teens, but I've had this conversation with a lot of teens where I ask, what is it that you want? And one of the common answers they come up with is money. Or things, stuff, property, right? But they want some money. They want to be able to buy and get what they have. Remember what we've already talked about here. That freedom is not free and you have to produce more than you consume. In this next conversation, I'm going to label it values before valuables. Your teenager is going to turn into an adult at some point, as long as, we keep feeding them and nothing violent happens to them. But it's really natural for teens as they transition into adulthood to notice that the powerful people out there seem to have money. And so they think it's the money that they need in order to have a good life. This conversation is going to help them understand that the values come before the valuables. In fact, everyone who owns property or money or valuables got there by applying certain values and principles in their life. And that's the conversation we want to have with our teens, because then they'll start to connect the right cause and effect.
Right. One more conversation that's so important to have with our teens is that people are not property. Now, we got to set this up. Hopefully, as you're having these conversations, you're showing your child that you don't view them as property, because our children are not our property either. But we really, as they're starting to make other relationships with people, maybe getting into the dating scene and relationships with employers, we really want them to understand that people are not property.
This changes how they show up in those relationships, and really it's based on respect. Vicki, in our family, we had 3 family rules.
Right.
And these are the same rules that we encourage parents to adopt in our positive parenting programs. It all has to do with respect. All 3 rules, actually. Rule number 1, respect yourself and others. Rule number 2,
respect property.
And then finally, rule number 3 is respect authority. They all have to do with respect. In fact, respect rules. Hey, there's a cool double meaning there.
Right.
Respect the rules, have respect for the rules, and respect rules. That's what will take you to freedom in your relationships and in every aspect of your life. Teens can be a real challenge for parents, but you've got this. And we've got your back too. There are so many resources right here on the channel in the Positive Parenting playlist. Spend some time there. Look up specific topics. You're going to find some really great ideas. And we've got some programs and coaching available to you. We've got things to match almost to any budget. So get on a discovery call with one of our coaches, drpauljenkins.com/breakthrough call.
I wished I'd had a number so